There are 11 people on death row in the state of Nebraska. Roy Ellis, 14 years on death row. For the murder of a 12-year-old girl, the state of Nebraska gave Ellis a death sentence. He allegedly kidnapped 12-year-old Amber Harris, who was then essayed before being killed by Ellis after being hit twice in the skull with a hammer. 6 months after Amber vanished from an Omaha school bus stop, her remains were discovered buried in a park. She was found dead from blunt force trauma, according to an autopsy, and Ellis was implicated in the crime thanks to DNA recovered on the girl's book bag that was discovered close to his house. Ellis had committed child S crimes at the time and had been identified by the authorities as having a high propensity to do similar crimes. At his 2008 murder trial, the prosecution called Ellis's former stepdaughters to testify that Harris repeatedly essayed them when they were 14 years old and 12 years old and had fathered a child with each of them. The prosecution also presented evidence showing that Harris had probably essayed the girl before killing her. Jorge Galindo, Jose Sandoval, Eric Fernando Vela, 18 years on death row. On the morning of September 26, 2002, 4 U.S. bank workers, Lola Elwood, Lisa Bryant, Joe Mouseback, and Samuel Sun, as well as a counter customer, Yvonne Tuttle, were shot and killed. The horrific incident was documented on camera and in the testimony of 2 employees who survived the horror. As he approached the front, Jose Sandoval fired 3 shots at Sun, Tuttle, and Mouseback. Eric Vela and Jorge Galindo entered the offices on either side, where Galindo shot Elwood and Vela shot Bryant before opening fire on a customer who was about to enter. The 5 perished as the 3 fled empty-handed. After stopping at a McDonald's 75 miles away in O'Neill, Sandoval, Galindo, and Vela were arrested within hours. The 3 ultimately landed on death row, Sandoval and Galindo after being found guilty at trial, and Vela after pleading guilty. Anthony Garcia, 4 years on death row. Garcia was found guilty in 2016 for 2 assaults on Omaha's Creighton University School of Medicine families that took place 5 years apart. The deaths, according to the prosecution, were sparked by Garcia's long-simmering resentment about being discharged in 2001 by Roger Brombeck and another pathology doctor from Creighton. At the family's house in a posh area of Omaha, Garcia fatally stabbed 11-year-old Thomas Hunter and 57-year-old Shirley Sherman. After gathering a ton of evidence, police were unable to identify a suspect in the crimes. In the years that followed, the matter was closed. Yet after Brombeck and his wife Mary passed away in their Omaha home on Mother's Day 2013, that situation changed. Authorities noticed similarities between the murders in 2008 and 2013, and Garcia was immediately a suspect. Roger Brombeck was stabbed after being shot in his front entryway. According to detectives, his wife was killed by stabbing, exactly like Thomas Hunter and Shirley Sherman had been. Jeffrey Hessler, 18 years on death row. In order to deliver newspapers on her route, 15-year-old Heather Guerrero left her house in Gering, Nebraska, early on February 11, 2003. Heather never came home again. During a search, Heather's body was discovered early on February 12 in the basement of an abandoned home close to Lake Minnetonka, Nebraska. An eyewitness who was out walking his dog on the morning of February 11, 2003, claimed hearing a scream and seeing a silver or tan Nissan Altima drive by quickly during the inquiry into Heather's abduction. Hessler had been given permission to drive a car belonging to a friend of his that fit that criteria. 3 boxes of live ammo, a few spent casings, and Hessler's wallet were discovered after the automobile was searched. Hessler turned over his semi-automatic weapon to authorities after being interrogated by them. He acknowledged having intercourse with Heather, but insisted that it was consensual in answer to questioning. Hessler claimed that when Heather declared she wouldn't keep their meeting private, he freaked out, brought her to the basement of the abandoned house, and shot her. Nico Allen Jenkins, 5 years on death row. Jenkins, an American spree killer, was found guilty of 4 murders that he carried out in Omaha, Nebraska in August 2013. The killings took place a month after he was freed from jail after serving 10.5 years of the 18 years he was sentenced to for a carjacking he committed when he was 15 years old and for attacks committed while incarcerated. Jenkins said that the ancient serpent god Apophis had ordered him to carry out the crimes. In May 2017, he was given a death sentence after being found guilty of the 4 murders and judged competent to stand trial. As the prosecution described the specifics of the killings of his victims, he smiled and grinned briefly. He claimed that the 4 residents of Omaha died because the Nebraska jail system released him despite his alleged insanity. He declared that he desired to be executed. Jenkins argued that the killings of Kruger and the others were carried out as human sacrifices, and that he was only the instrument used to carry out the orders of Apophis. John Lotter, 27 years on death row. For his part in the murders of Brandon Tina, Lisa Lambert, and Philip Devine in 1993, Lotter received the death penalty. In relation to the murders, which happened at Humboldt County Farm, Lotter has maintained his innocence. For the role he played in the crimes, his co-defendant Thomas Nissen is currently serving a life term. Nissen stated at Lotter's trial that he and Lotter went to Lambert's home where they knew Brandon was residing with the intention of killing him. He had been essayed by Nissen and Lotter before, and they were enraged that she had reported the assault to the authorities. In his testimony, Nissen stated that he and Lotter had made the decision to kill anyone else they came across. While Lotter fired the rounds that killed all 3 victims, Nissen claimed that he had stabbed Brandon. Further evidence presented at the trial proved that Lotter procured the knife and the yellow work gloves used in the murders, as well as the revolver used to kill the victims the night of the killings. Nissen and Lotter were both observed wearing gloves just before the murders. Raymond Mata, 22 years on death row. Mata received a death sentence for the murder of a child. According to court records, Raymond Mata stole his girlfriend's 3-year-old child because he was furious that she was carrying another man's baby. Patricia Gomez and Robert Billy, who had been together for 5 years until Billy left their Scottsbluff, Nebraska home in September 1998, had a son named Adam. Patricia continued to live with Adam despite the absence of a formal custody agreement. Shortly after, Patricia and Mata started dating, and in October or November, Mata moved in with Patricia and Adam. Patricia later admitted to authorities that despite the fact that Mata did not intentionally mistreat Adam, he frequently voiced hostility against the child and said that the little boy was constantly in the way. When the youngster went missing, the police checked the house of Monica, Mata's sister. They discovered that a package covered in plastic and duct tape and concealed in the ceiling held the crushed skull. Blunt force trauma that happened at or close to the moment of death caused the skull to fracture in a number of places. At the time of death or shortly after, the head had been cut off from the body by a sharp object. Police found a package of human meat that was foil wrapped in the kitchen refrigerator of the property. On the foil, Mata's fingerprint was discovered. Moreover, human remains were discovered on a toilet plunger and in the sewer system leading from the house. Both a package of dog food and a bowl of dog food containing cooked and uncooked human meat were discovered. There were pieces of human bone found in the dog's stomach as well. All of the recovered remains were later identified by DNA analysis as those of Adam. Marco Torres, 13 years on death row. Torres of Pasadena, Texas, was convicted on August 28, 2009 of killing Timothy Donahue, 48 years old, and Edward Hall, 60 years old, in March 2007. Torres committed the murders to conceal a robbery. Hall was bound and gagged and likely suffered prior to his death, making the murders heinous and cruel. Torres had a criminal record. Prior to being sentenced, he was given the chance to speak to the court, but he declined with a simple "No, Your Honor." He sat silently, stared straight ahead, and showed no sign of emotion as the 3-judge panel announced he would pay for 2 murders with his own life. The judges found Torres wasn't under mental or emotional stress at the time of the murders. He wasn't an accomplice, and he wasn't unable to appreciate the wrongness of his actions. Aubrey Clifton Trail, 1 year on death row. Sidney Loof left work on November 15, 2017 to go on a Tinder date in Wilbur, Nebraska. After missing work at a nearby Menards shop in Lincoln the following day, Loof was reported missing. 60 miles from where she had her date, down a gravel road, police discovered her mutilated remains 3 weeks later. In connection with the murder of Loof, Bailey Boswell and Aubrey Trail were detained. The suspects' explanations have evolved over time. Boswell and Trail first denied being involved in Loof's murder, but after the body was found, Trail admitted to the killing while Boswell continued to claim innocence. The couple were seen making purchases of bleach, saws, and garbage bags not long before Loof vanished. The jury took just a few hours to find Trail guilty of first-degree murder, conspiring to murder, and improperly disposing of human skeletal remains. Boswell was found guilty in October 2020 of first-degree murder, murder conspiracy, and unlawful disposal of human remains. The 3 judges on the bench unanimously decided to execute Trail in June 2021. Because one of the 3 judges concluded that Boswell's actions did not match the requirement of exceptional depravity required for the imposition of the death penalty, Boswell was given a life term in prison. Nebraska executed Carrie Dean Moore on August 14, 2011, the first lethal injection execution in the state in 21 years. Moore had been found guilty of murder. The fact that fentanyl, a potent painkiller, was used during his execution, the first to do so in the U.S., made it noteworthy as well. Only in Nebraska, once a trial determines that the offender qualifies for the death penalty, the death sentence is decided by a 3-judge panel. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.